In this video, we're going to take a look at the Sega Game Gear Micro and see if it's really worth the $50 price tag. This is Steve from Restalgia, and let's get started. Welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time here, please go down below the video and subscribe as we are working our way towards 27,000 subscribers. Now be sure to hit the thumbs up button while you are down there too. Now obviously we are going to look at the Game Gear Micro released by Sega in this video, and this was an Amazon Japan exclusive, which means for anyone in the USA or Canada like myself, we needed to import it, which added cost to an already expensive buy. These retail for about $50 each, with a marginal price break if you do buy the 4-pack bundle. But with that, you also do get this little Sega magnifying lens type thing to help see the screen a little bit better, which I get why they included it because the screen is really small on these guys, but I did actually find that having it on the console made the buttons feel so much more crammed than they already were, and that's not really that great for a handheld this small. Now for this video, we are going to go ahead and take a look inside of the box, check out the device, the menu, but we're also going to go ahead and rip this thing apart and go over the internal specs. Now I've already spoken to some of the modders about this, and I'll let you guys know if this thing is even worth modding in the first place. So each of these devices come with their own unique 4 titles built into the machine. Now keep in mind, many of these games are completely unplayable in North America unless you can read Japanese, as there are no language settings at all to mess around with for the main navigation or any of the in-game settings. Now opening up the classic black device, it really doesn't come with anything other than the console itself and a manual. They didn't even include a micro USB cable, which we can come back to in a little bit. Now the device itself looks pretty good, to be honest, in terms of its design. Form factor is okay, it is nice, the plastic used doesn't feel flimsy, and the D-pad, kind of feels like macaroni in a pot. Macaroni in a pot! It's mushy. The conductive pad underneath doesn't really feel like it makes very good contact, and the buttons aren't that much better. Now the top of the device has all of the main I/O, including a volume wheel, 3.5mm audio jack, micro USB port, and a power switch. Something I had forgotten about was the fact that this actually runs off of 2 AAA batteries, and for $50 and for a device like this, I really would have expected them to throw in some sort of a rechargeable battery in here. But I guess we do have the option of playing this with our non-included micro SD cable. Turning it on, we have a little bit of a delay between our Game Gear splash screen and the main menu, but that's not really that big of a deal, and the menu is relatively nice for such a small screen. We do have some background music playing, which is kind of nice in my opinion, but some people won't like it, and if you don't like it, just turn the volume down while you're in the menu. But in terms of menu navigation, we more or less have immediate access to the 4 titles right from the get-go. After launching a game, we can actually access our menu by doing a long press on the start button, and when we get in here, you'll see that we do have 4 different save states for each title, so saving and loading is an option for those states. We also do have the ability to adjust brightness up and down, and then we do have one final button that gives us access to our main menu to reselect a new title. From the main menu, we do have a settings cog in the top left corner, which doesn't really give us a ton of options. Now keep in mind, this is all in Japanese, and I don't know the exact wording that they're using, but based off of what I've seen, but it looks like the first option just gives us our credits. Next, we have all of the emulator and open source technical information being displayed in the second option, and then our third one appears to be a factory reset function. And then finally, on the very end of the list, we do have the option to exit back to the main menu again. Now I did complain about the buttons feeling really mushy, and as mushy as those buttons do feel, they actually respond well enough in game to make the games playable. Emulation is surprisingly good, and I didn't notice any real issues, so it's fair to say the device does do what it's set out to do. And although the controls do feel really spongy, they are fairly responsive and they don't negatively impact the gameplay experience much. Now that being said, what we're going to go ahead and do is show you all 4 colors, but I'm not going to bother turning them on or anything like that just because it is essentially the exact same experience and the only difference really is the 4 games that are going to be displayed. But generally, I think they did a pretty good job with the production on these. The colors on these are really nice and vibrant, and most importantly, they do not have that cheap plastic feel or look. Generally speaking, they actually look fairly good. Now I'm going to take one of these guys apart and we will have a much better idea of what exactly goes into this device. Now these are actually very simple to take apart. Essentially, you're just going to remove the 4 screws on the back, you'll lift up the rear housing, and you're going to get your PCB completely exposed. I wasn't really expecting a powerhouse of a device running in here, and I was absolutely right. The SoC, or System on a Chip, is the all-winner F1 C200S chipset, and that's going to be running an ARM9 CPU architecture with a very, very small 64 megabytes of DDR1 memory. The device also does appear to have 128 megabytes of flash memory, giving it a fair amount of space if modding is a thing that was an option. You will also notice there is a button near where the batteries would go, and this is an FEL button. It is not just checked in the software, but this actually is tied directly into the SoC, which again is really nice from a modding perspective. Now about that, do not get too excited about this thing getting mods and all of those other options coming down to load up the entire Sega Game Gear library on this thing. Now I'm not saying it can't be done or it won't be done, but I'm saying it's pretty unlikely. Aside from the demand not being very high for this device in the first place, it does appear to be locked down pretty tightly. A few developers have already been looking into this, namely Cyanic and Honeylab, and it appears that even things like the menu code is for the most part hard-coded. Again, it could be modded, but would require some serious effort, and likely the end result would simply be something along the lines of just being able to swap out the internal 4 games with different ones, rather than adding a bunch of titles to the machine. Ultimately, we may not see a mainstream mod for this device, which kind of sucks, and that's going to heavily impact my personal opinion of the device in general. Now, coming around full circle, do I think that this device is worth 50 bucks? Honestly, not the way that it is. I feel like 50 bucks is just a little bit too much for what you get here. Honestly, I would have been way happier to pay twice as much money or even a little bit more for a reasonably sized device. Let's call it 40% scale of the original Game Gear or something along those lines. But as it stands right now, this is really only a cool novelty item, and it kind of reminds me of those cheapo $15 retro arcade or retro pinball game keychains that you can pick up at Walmart, and it's just something that you might pick up and take a peek at and play around with for a few minutes and then set it aside and never touch it again. Sure, we do get the officially licensed Sega Game Gear versions of the included titles, but there's way better ways and much better handhelds that you can buy in today's market to play these, which provide a much better gameplay experience, at least in my opinion. But that is pretty much all I've got for you guys in this video. Let me know in the comments section down below if you picked one of these up, and if you did, what do you think of it? Make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Hit the thumbs up button if you liked the video and the thumbs down button if you didn't. Thank you so very much for watching, and I will talk to you guys again real soon.